Are we going?
I guess we are. Just like my dad.
Going where?
Away. Hello, welcome. Today we are reviewing books that we've read this year so far.
You sound really monotone.
Sorry, I'm depressed. Let's start with the first book of the year. We Were Liars. Okay, what were your thoughts, my darling? I don't have the book. Here's the book. Cameron will insert a picture of the book where my hand is.
The characters introduced way too quick.
Yes.
My little pea brain.
It was literally like maybe, 2 pages of them just going, this person, this person, this person, this person, they're this person's child, this person's grandkid. It was a lot. It is a short book, so they had to do it that well. They didn't have to do it that way, but I personally liked the book. Cameron did not.
I liked it. I gave
you did like it?
4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, I'm glad you have a fucking thing up. I'm just looking at my Goodreads. It's not showing up my review for it. Oh, there we go. I gave it 3.
It wouldn't be for you if you don't like dramatic metaphors.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When she's like, her blood was spewing out all over the place.
Oh, yeah. It was fucking wild. It was just about rich people, which made it really unrelatable. For a start, that was like the first thing that I was like, oh, I can't really relate to this because I'm poor. It was basically a rich family that owned a fucking island that they went to every summer. Because, you know, that's what normal families do.
Why can't you relate to that?
But I said, I wasn't sure of the writing style at the first because it was a bit unusual. I don't even have the fucking book with me because Kenzie's got it. She took it from me.
Theft.
Yeah, theft. Casual theft. But the writing style is hard to get used to. I can't even remember, but it was strange. And I remember being like, how the fuck am I going to read this? But you get used to it after a couple chapters. You know, even though the chapters are like, 2 pages sometimes. I think I did the maths and like, the average chapter was something like 2.3 pages. It was a quick read. I think I finished it in like, I did it in a day. I read it in a day. In like, not even the whole day. It has like a good plot twist at the end. I liked the plot twist. I thought that was really well done. I didn't see it coming either. I was like, I like a bit more dramatic than that because I cried for the last 10 pages of that book, or like 30 pages. After you find out the plot twist, you can go back and realise how much foreshadowing there is to it. And there's like a lot of hints. Anyway, 3 stars.
I started my year with, everybody in this room will one day be dead.
What a joyous book to start your year with.
But basically, if you read the blurb, you basically read the entire book.
Oh.
And in the book, it was like so much facts about life. Where it's like, one day we're going to be dead.
Yes.
And that's all that read like. So it was very depressing, and it started slow. Like, she started by breaking her arm. Yeah, I kind of spiraled at the end of it because it carried on being so depressing, and I was like, okay, let's just whip it out and get it finished. And it was like,
what a lovely way to start your year.
If you're like really anxious about dying and stuff, not for you.
No.
Do not read it.
Mm-mm. I started my year with The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. And fuck me, did that book wreck my soul. But that's because I love Phantom of the Opera already. Like, I grew up with the musical. And then I like learned more about like the actual characters that it's based on. So then I was like, I bought the book a good couple of years ago and just didn't read it because like that was when I was going through my not reading phase. We've all been there. And then like I was like, okay, this will be the book to start my year with. Hell yeah. No, I cried so much. It's like so much, that book is so much more depressing. Like the musical is sad anyway, but like it gives you more of a look into the Phantom, who was called Eric, his life, and like how he was abused and stuff because of his deformity and things like that. And there are like key lines in there where he's like, I just wanted to be loved for myself. And like the Persian, I fucking love the Persian. He's such a good character, and he's not in the musical, and that devastates me because he's great. I love him. He says, because Eric dies, it's not really a spoiler because this book is like from the 1800s, so you don't have a spoiler for this. Eric dies at the end of the book, and the Persian was talking to Christine, And he was like, oh, he could have held the empire of the world in his heart, but he had to content himself with a cellar because of his deformity. And I was gone. I was like fully distraught. I walked downstairs to Mum and Phil and I was like, his book. I was like proper like sobbing. Like I thought about that book I cried over that book for a good couple of days because I kept thinking about it. And I'm gonna ruin my life even more by reading Phantom by Susan Kay, which is a prequel to, well, it includes him being at the opera, but it actually takes you through his life step by step, like him being with the gypsies, his parents selling him to the circus, and like it gives you details. It's basically like a little life but Phantom of the Opera, because it gives you the fucking details of his abuse and trauma and how he gets sold off to the Persian Empire and he builds torture chambers for it's a whole fucking thing, and it's gonna make me really depressed. But I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because
Depressing
a masterpiece.
Are the best books.
Depressed books are the best books. Don't read it if you are easily depressed. Don't expose me like that.
The second book I read was The First to Die at the End, which is a gay book. But
I'm only now stepping my toes into gay books. I have loved them so far.
one of the characters swore too much, which is really
That's
ironic
annoying.
for me, but it was overused. They basically mentioned, because you get a text the day you die saying like, you're gonna die, haha.
Oh my god, yeah, I've heard about this.
And basically they mentioned this vault where all the mechanics behind it, how it works, but you never actually find out how it works. And it's like, why the fuck would you mention the vault if you're not gonna learn anything?
And then I read The Mad Woman's Ball, the biggest disappointment of the fucking year for me. I was so excited for this book. It had such a good premise and it was awful. The author just spelled, granted it is a translation of a French book, I'm pretty sure it's French. It's set in Paris in an asylum back in like the 1800s. And every year they have the Mad Woman's Ball where higher class society can pay to go to a ball with the mad women, and they're like, oh my god, yeah, it's so cool. It's so fucking, if it's not a take on how we still are now, because people do be like this still. And like, the premise was so good because this girl that can see dead people, so like she's in a rich family, she can see dead people, so her father sends her to the asylum, and then like this nurse that works there has like a dead sister, and it's such a good premise, but the author spells everything out for you. She's just like, this person is like this because of this, instead of letting you piece it together yourself. And like, she could just let the characters do things and you could gather it yourself, but she's just, it's quite a short book. It's only 210 pages. I think it could have done with being longer if it was less spelled out, so she could actually flesh out. But it was like a big disappointment, and I could predict every plot twist that was going to happen. I gave it 2 stars, which was generous.
I read The School for Good Mothers.
Oh my god, I remember you fucking reading this book, it was so bad.
But because I set up my own version of how it was going to work, I was like, okay, it's going to be really good. And then it wasn't. And I was like, wow, my idea was so much better. That was my fault for being like, creating my own version. The ending was good, because it was like, yeah, men get. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like one thing a woman does, a man.
Yeah, that's very true. The next book I read this year was Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I probably butchered that name. This book was a very hard to read book. Not just because of the subject matter, but because of the writing style. Because it's an old book. It's a classic. So like, the language is a bit of a harder reading level, and I'm dumb, so. But obviously the subject matter was a big thing too, because it's about paedophiles. This guy, Humber, he's the narrator, he takes you through the book, but he's an unreliable narrator because you only see the story from his perspective, from his eyes. And there are, like, you'll be reading it and it makes you question everything, because you'll be like, oh my god, Humber, he's doing his thing. And then you'll get like a little moment where you see a little bit of it slip, and you'll see a little bit of like, what's going on for Dolores. Lolita, that's her name, is Dolores. Because he never calls her name in this book. Not once does he call her Dolores, I don't think. It's always Lo or Dolly or Lolita. It's never like, or my nymphette. He never really calls her by her name, and that like dehumanizes her so much. And that's what kind of like, when she is mentioned by name, it really fucking shakes you. And there are a couple of moments in this book where you kind of stop reading and you're like, this man's a paedophile. Well, obviously, but like, it's very, I don't really know how to describe it, because like you have to read it to get what I mean, but like, because it's through his eyes, when you get like moments where she's crying and things like that, you're like, oh my god, what the fuck. She ends up running away with this other paedophile. It's a whole thing, but it's a really good book. Don't read it if you're easily triggered by that stuff. It is hard to read. It took me a good week or so because it's just so hard to get through with like the style of writing and the subject matter, but it is 100% worth to read. It's actually on like the big official list of 100 books to read before you die. Don't know why they put it on there, because it's triggering as fuck, but it is a really, really good book. I did cry a few times in it just because it's like so sad and traumatic, especially at the end when she's older and she's pregnant and she's moved out with somewhere else, and he's like reminiscing to her, and he's like, just come away with me again, you can have the money, you know, come away with me. And she's like, no, I'm not going back with you. And he takes it, I guess, but like, that's when you kind of get her perspective a bit, and you think, oh yeah, she knows what he's done to her, and she's like legitimately traumatized now. And then she dies in childbirth, which you find out in the epilogue. Yeah, it's fucking wild. The ending to that book is so wild. I couldn't have predicted any of it. I was there just like, so much is happening. It was like, it was wild.
The next book I read was Bunny, which was about a cult. They basically kill rabbits and turn them into men. So much happens, but it was so good. And then it was The Way I Used to Be.
Yeah, my next one is The Way I Used to Be, so we can do this together. We have it here. This fucking book. This book could have its own fucking video. It was so...
It's really dusty.
That's because I haven't picked it up for a while, okay? My room is dusty. We live near a building site. It's going to be dusty in here.
Excuses.
Firstly, that cover, stunning.
The first note I put was, I love a depressing book about trauma.
Yeah, we do love a depressing book about trauma. That's basically our aesthetic. That's like... I started off my book journey being like, fantasy is where it's at for me. And I do love fantasy. But depressing books hit so different, don't they? They hit so good. This book, there's probably going to be a lot of spoilers in this, because we have no filter and we like to talk. The book literally jumps straight into it. Like, the first few pages is like, she's getting raped by her brother's friend. And it's like, the bit that like, I cried straight away for this pretty much. I was like upset straight away. Because she was like, it was the bit where he was like, where she was like, oh, my days of the week underwear on the floor, just to show how young. I think she was 13 when it happened. 13. And that just hit me deep. Personal issues, you know. It literally, like, the first bit is her getting raped, and like the immediate aftermath of that. Like, don't read this book if you're triggered easily, because it literally discusses her having like bruises on her thighs and blood and between her legs and on the sheets. And like, her mum comes in, and her mum's first thought is, oh yes, you've got your period, despite being able to see the bruises all over her. I don't know how any mother can overlook that. Just straight off the bat, it just jumps straight in. And then like the rest of the book is again, all of the aftermath of it. She pushes her friends away. She doesn't tell anyone. She won't tell her brother. She gets into this relationship, oh my god. She basically accidentally makes someone a nonce, doesn't she? She gets into a relationship with this 18-year-old, and she is 14 when she gets with this guy, and the only reason he finds out is because her best friend puts 15th birthday decorations on her locker, and he's fucking mad, and rightfully so. I'd be pissed too.
She said she was 16?
Yeah, she said she was 16, because they sleep together, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, she loses her virginity to him. I put quotes because, you know, she's been raped, but, you know, virginity is a concept. She has her first consensual experience with him, so that makes him mad. So they break up and she basically never hears from him again until like all of his jock friends start calling her a slut. That made me so mad. I was getting so pissed, but like obviously I know it's not their fault because I don't know, but I was getting angry.
Couldn't tell. You're hiding it well.
Very dramatic, okay.
I think it showed like the aftermath of sexual assault really well.
Yes, really well. A lot of the reviews we read on this book were people being like, it's not realistic, people don't react this way, or I don't want to see books where people react this way, because why don't we have books people reacting strongly and just getting on with their life, because that's not realistic for most people. Most people don't cope with the aftermath well, and especially when you don't immediately tell someone and you have to deal with it yourself. Because she spirals in this. Gal like she drinks, she ends up doing drugs at some point. She also, a lot of the bit that made a lot of people mad was that she basically got addicted to sex, and she became
very hypersexual.
And they were like, oh, that's not realistic, that doesn't happen if you get raped. Yes, it does, and that's psychologically proven. Like, there are studies on this, that people, you kind of flip one way or the other. You become hypersexual, or you just don't, or you flip and flop between it. And I thought it showed that really well, how, you know, firstly, being raped doesn't then make you like, it doesn't sway your sexual life, it doesn't destroy your sex life in the future. It makes it harder, but for her, it became a way of controlling her body. It was her choice. And she talks about it in the book, like, this is my choice, I'm choosing to do this, it's my body and I can do what I want. But it showed that really well. The aftermath, the way she reacted. The way she reacted, I think, was very valid. So I don't understand. You can tell when people haven't been through trauma when they comment stuff like that, where they're like, you wouldn't react like that. No. Yes. In the end, she does tell her brother. And she doesn't tell her brother first. She actually ends up calling that guy who's already in college. And she has like this whole breakdown. She tells him, and then she tells her brother, and it ends with her brother driving her to the police station, which annoyed me because I wanted to see more. I wanted to know what happens, but that's not what this book is about. This book is about the aftermath of dealing with it, not the justice side of it. So yes, it needed to end there, but I really wanted to know what happened afterwards.
That guy being her first boyfriend, that she didn't tell her age to him.
Something else that I like that this book has is at the end of the book, depending on what country you buy this book in, it has a getting help page after the author's note and stuff, where it'll give you like Childline, Rape Crisis, Samaritans, all that stuff. And then after the acknowledgements, it says, after you finish reading The Right Way I Used to Be, here's some questions to facilitate a discussion. And it like takes you through there's 17 questions. And I think that's really good. And I know no school would ever tackle this book. But if this book was like maybe for A-level, or maybe for just below that, or college, this would be a really good book to pick because of the questions at the back. I think that would be a really good book to start. I mean, it would be great if high schools incorporated this book, because rape culture is a fucking thing nowadays, and it would be really good for kids to learn about this, maybe from like the age of 15, 16. I think it would be a good book for schools, but that will never happen because people are fucking pressed and they have the stick up their ass. Do you have any more thoughts on the book? You haven't really discussed it, it's mostly been me.
Yeah, but you've practically said all of it. I put hurt people because she's like her. She's like her and all her friends like isolating them out.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because
that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heavy book, very trigger. I would definitely read the trigger warnings first before you read this book, because it's not just the rape part. There's like descriptions of it. There's the drug taken, the alcohol, the sex addiction part. Trigger warnings for sure for this one, but it's very good. I think I gave it 5 stars.
I gave it 5 stars because it's one of those books where it's not gonna like be bullshitted to like.
Yeah, I gave 5 stars. It's a good book, and it tells you straight, and It doesn't waffle. It's not thick, but it's quite a, I think it's a good length. Any longer would have been too much, any shorter wouldn't have been enough.
Yeah.
It is a good book. I did thoroughly enjoy this. I say enjoy, but like I cried. I think that is where my January reads ends.
January, what a fucking month.
That was a month where we decided we wanted to be hurt.
Clearly.
We started the new year as we meant to go on. We were like, it's not a new year, new me, it's a new year, time to give myself depression again. Just to jumpstart it. Why put it off?
Let's just start low.
Get it out of the way.
Can only go high.
It's debatable.
Start low, only go lower.
That's better. January was a good month for reading. I read quite a few books. And then February I kind of dipped down a bit because I was like, oof, that was a lot.
Fair enough.
But then again, February was a shorter month. So those were our January reads. Like 5 months late.
Okay, bye.
Bye.